Hello there. Thanks for tuning into Ajukan, the Advanced Racing Analysis. And I'm here in Belle Isle, and it's early in the morning. It's cold and it's drizzling. So this is pretty much the perfect time for me to commandeer this fishing pier. Usually I can't access it because of social distancing, because it's usually very crowded with a lot of people fishing. But now that it's early and it's kind of undesirable to be here right now, so I can come here to make my video. So yeah, this fishing pier. All right, so this video is about the LMDh regulations. So I'm going to go through the regulations one by one and give my thoughts on them. All right, so first, LMDh is a common car created by ACO IMSA and able to race in both WC and IMSA. So it's really not a common, okay. It wasn't a car created jointly by ACO and IMSA. It was actually created by IMSA as DPI. It was supposed to be the DPI 2.0, but because the WC didn't have enough subscribers for its hypercar, so they figured they had to let in the DPIs because now they only have Toyota, and Peugeot comes in later. Aston Martin dropped out, so that's not enough manufacturers compared to DPI 2.0. It's supposed to attract a lot more people, so that's why they wanted to have the now DPIs in there, but they're calling them LMDh. All right, so LMDh is based on a cost caps car and will be LMDh is based on a cost capped car and will have the same spine, complete car without bodywork engine hybrid as the next generation of LeMans Prototype 2s. Yeah, okay, it's going to be based on the next generation LeMans Prototype 2s coming into effect, but personally I really think they should have a new tender because there's only 4 LMP2 manufacturers. So 4 LMP2 manufacturers. Right now it's not a big deal because there's only 4 DPI constructors, so each constructor can have their own chassis builder. But I mean, with 4 LMP2 manufacturers only, when you start to have more LMDh manufacturers than LMP2 manufacturers, there might be a conflict of interest because let's say Porsche chose, Ligier, and they could only go to Ligier, and Ligier also has Peugeot. They wouldn't want that. They wouldn't want, there will be some type of conflict, in my opinion, because there would be one manufacturer might be a little bit hesitant because the builder could cross-share technology or designs between the two models, so pretty much giving you no advantage at all. So so they need to have a new tender and include more, actually no more tender, just include no more tender, just include more LMP2 constructors. So before we used to have Dome, Gibson, Ginetta, BR, and maybe even Doran. I'm not sure if they're up to the task, but Doran could be another American constructor. So Dome, Gibson, Ginetta, and BR. So those could be, they should just add them in. No more just 4 constructors. Okay, next regulations. Only mainstream automotive manufacturers associated with one of the 4 chassis constructors can homologate an LMDh car. Okay, only mainstream manufacturers, but the only thing is that the LMDh formula very much appeals to low-cost builders. So low-cost builders, actually, because it's a low-cost formula, it very much appeals to low-cost builders. For example, we have like Oris, Alpine, Morgan, ProDrive, Glickenhaus. So those, it actually appeals a lot more to them. The low cost formula, they can build it, so they could make this work. So it's a very good formula. But I guess that's because this was mainly an IMSA formula at first. It was supposed to be an IMSA formula, and in IMSA they want fans to recognize the car. So that's That's why, and they want fans to recognize the car, so I believe that's why. But it appeals, man, you know, this is very much appeals to low-cost builders. I mean, smaller builders, smaller manufacturers. But only mainstream constructors. We'll see how many mainstream constructors actually sign up, and maybe that might depend on if they decide to let in the smaller manufacturers, manufacturers. And the cars will feature a manufacturer branded and stylized bodywork, a manufacturer branded engine, a common single source rear-wheel drive hybrid system. Well, but LMDh hypercars will have front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive with the hybrid system. So that gives them an advantage because they will have better traction. So that means better traction, better acceleration. So that's a distinct advantage there. And gearbox is also a single source for LMDh compared to LMH hypercar cars. They can have bespoke transmissions, so that's also an advantage for them. So and then that means that with bespoke transmission, they could develop the transmission as the season goes on. I don't know how much. I don't think the LMDh constructors can develop the transmission, but I guess we'll see. The only thing that maybe the gearing, they could make the gearing work better with the engine. I assume that's pretty much the best thing they could do over there. That's the best thing they could do. A minimum homologation period of 5 years. A minimum homologation period of 5 years. That gives the LMDh constructors plenty of time to develop, I would say. So plenty of time for them to develop. It is. I even do a lot of stuff, as we saw in the first few years of DPIs. The first year, the DPIs were pretty much had the same speed as the LMP2 cars, but in the second year you saw the jump, and then in the third year now you see the big jump there is. So I guess in 5 years I could see LMDh cars coming up to speed with in the first or second, even in the second year, really challenging the LMH car. So it shouldn't be too bad. So 5 years is good, and then the engines could come up too. The basis of the joint regulation to govern the new LMDh is comprised of the following: minimum car weight of 1,030 kilograms. So that's that's 2,271 pounds for Americans. So yeah, so 2,271 pounds. That's pretty heavy. That's a pretty heavy car. So, but I guess it's needed to make the cars eco, right? And 500 watts peak of combined power. So that's 670 horsepower. And by 600, that's pretty low. That's for the top formula, that's pretty low. Top international formula to really put on the show, I think they should have at least 700 horsepower. The only thing here is that means that the P2 cars will have to be pegged back, probably 500 horsepower. So that means that the current generation P1 cars will be in high demand in the classic circuits, so they will be in high demand in for gentlemen drivers who want track day sessions. So the current P1 cars will become pretty much in high demand. So teams that have a P1 car like Rebellion, if they're willing to sell it, or if they're willing to keep them and lease them for track day sessions, so a lot of gentlemen driver will be willing to take those cars for a run, because once they reduce the P2 car speed, some people might not get the same thrill of driving the cars, so they might prefer driving an older P1 car, maybe even older P2 car. So I assume that's what some gentleman drivers will be doing. And also, so carryover engines. So they said the engines will be carried over. So they said the DPI engines can be carried over, but I don't think carrying them over, they will leave them the same. I'm sure the manufacturers have been updating them, like Cadillac, they've been updating. Acura will be updating. Acura has had the same engine since Extreme Speed won Daytona in 2016. So this is the same engine that had that 3.5 liter engine. So that's the same engine. So I don't think that engine is sitting stale. I'm sure I'm sure that Honda has been updating it, that Acura has. So if they chose to go DPI, it will be updated some more. So 670 horsepower, you know, we shouldn't be sad as that. Those engines will be doing probably 700, 800 horsepower by the end of the first year. That's what I think, or at least at the beginning of the second year. One bodywork package with identical aerodynamic performance. So one bodywork package with identical performance. Pretty much, they don't want there to be a manufacturer team with a bodywork and a customer team with the same bodywork, but the customer team's bodywork won't give them the same performance. So pretty much, they want the cars to be able to have the same exact performance. They don't want any changes. And yeah, but the only thing is that because they only have one bodywork, I'm not sure how that will work, because they're planning to have one set of bodywork for all circuits for LMDh. I'm not sure if LMH is planning to have, the hypercars are planning to have the same thing. I assume they're planning to have a low downforce and high downforce body kit, and they plan to manage the car through BOP, but I don't see that quite working too well. I don't know. I think if LMDh should have one bodywork, hypercar should have one set of bodywork as well. So we'll see how that goes. Single tire supplier. So I guess single tire supplier, I guess they want the speeds to be comparable in IMSA and IMSA and WC. So that's so that should be fine. But except that IMSA right now are using Michelin tires, but they're not using bespoke tires made for each chassis. They're using one set of tires for all chassis. So that's quite, compared to in WC, they're using like custom tires, tires made for each, pretty much. So Rebellion has their tires and Toyota has their tires. So pretty much, if there was a manufacturer, when when Porsche was there, they had their own tires made by Michelin, and when Audi was there, Michelin was making them own tires. So maybe, I'm not sure if that'll be the same thing in IMSA, but probably maybe WC might be the same thing, or maybe there might be one Michelin tire regulations for all chassis. But I'm not sure if manufacturer will agree to that, because everybody wants to have the advantage. But we'll see. But they haven't spoken about that. There hasn't been any talk about that, if custom tires are allowed. So we'll see. Custom compounds are allowed, but we'll see. In the LMDh category, so where are the places for them to exploit for performance? Because they are supposed to have similar components in many areas. So as far as me, they can exploit the aerodynamics. So a lot of teams, they can exploit the aerodynamics. So that's pretty much one big source of the DPI cars right now. That's one advantage they have over the P2 cars, because manufacturers are giving the constructor extra development funds, extra funds to work on the aerodynamics, so teams can do that. And the suspension, so they're working on the suspensions, the springs, and a lot of other stuff, and the engine power curve. So because they will have their own custom engine, so the power curve they can work with, where the engine gets power, the mid-range, the high range, the low range. So you can do it that way depending on the circuit, so you could manipulate the power curve. And then the reliability, so the reliability compared to LMH cars. So that's one thing they could exploit, especially if they carries the engine over. So that's one thing they could do. And then the ECU, but ECUs, we don't know if they will have, I'm not sure if they will have I'm not sure if they will have the same ECU or not. So but the ECU could be something they could exploit, how they program it. So that's one thing they could look at. Okay, thanks for watching, and I appreciate the views. So thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, and leave the comments and let me know what you think. Thank you.